The newspapers of Nevada in May of 1875 were full of the obituary of Jack Harris, and the nemesis of Wells Fargo and Company for many years. His obituary, as it appeared in the Borax Miner for May 6, 1875, is as follows. Jack Harris, who died in Pioche on Sunday last, was a well-known character in this state, having directly and indirectly been identified with many of the scenes of violence of the early days. He was a native of Massachusetts, and in his early manhood he followed the sea for a livelihood. At the breaking out of the California gold excitement, he went to that state and resided for many years at Marysville and vicinity, where he was known as a desperate character and suspected of being implicated in various highway robberies. In 1859 or 1860, he came to Washoe, as the region of the Comstock was then called, residing principally in Carson City, where he married. For several years he kept a saloon in Carson, during which time his reputation was similar to that borne by him in California. In 1865, the Pioneer stage running between Placerville and Virginia City was stopped just below Silver City one morning by three men, and Baldy Green was politely requested to hand out the box. Baldy's accommodating spirit in matters of this kind was proverbial. He never took a second look down the barrel of a double-barrel shotgun which was shoved under his nose, but simply said, "Certainly, gentlemen," and handed out Wells Fargo and Company's treasure box as soon as he could get it out of the front boot. The box on this occasion contained a large amount of money and valuables, and immediately on the announcement of the robbery, W.F. and Company offered a large reward for the arrest and conviction of the robbers. The entire police machinery of the state was at once set to work, and in a short time Harris and two others were arrested, charged with the commission of the robbery. Harris and one of his accomplices were arrested in Austin. The party arrested with Harris has since become a respectable citizen, so we shall not mention his name in this connection. The other man was Al Waterman, who was arrested in Sierra Valley. The robbery was committed in Lyon County, and the three arrested men were incarcerated in the Lyon County Jail at Dayton. The party whose name we do not mention turned state's evidence and showed the officers where a portion of the spoils were secreted, but though there was evidently a clear case against Waterman and Harris, there seemed to be an indisposition on the part of Wells Fargo and Company to prosecute them. As a matter of form, however, they were tried. We forget the exact results of the case of Harris, but at any rate he left the country shortly after the trial, and Waterman was convicted and sentenced to 13 years in the state prison. Harris went to Washington, D.C., where for a short time he served on the detective police force of that city, but soon turned back to the Pacific coast, remaining several months on the Isthmus of Panama. In 1867, he opened a saloon in Austin in partnership with Nicanor, a notorious cattle thief and highwayman who recently escaped from the Lincoln County Jail. In the winter of this year, he had a quarrel with Charlie Brooks, one of Waterman's bondsmen, in which knives and pistols were drawn, but which ended without bloodshed. When the White Pine excitement broke out, he removed to that district and opened a saloon in Hamilton in 1869, removing thence to Eureka. Eureka was then a small camp and offered a small field for his genius, and he returned to White Pine. On the day of the Hamilton city election of 1870, he engaged in a street duel with Charles McIntyre, in which he received a shot through the right hand, which permanently disabled that member. In 1871, he went to Pioche, where he was more or less mixed up in the lot and mine-jumping troubles, and where he had several altercations, on one occasion clipping a lock of hair from the side of the head of Major O'Keefe, the jumper, with a bullet from a whistler. Years ago, it was prophesied that Jack Harris would die with his boots on, and the prophecy would have been fulfilled in the cases of 99 men out of every 100 who had followed a similar course of life. But his deathbed was cheered with the grim satisfaction of knowing that these prognostications as to the manner of his death were unfulfilled. Waterman, however, did die with his boots on, being killed in Virginia City by Miles Goodman under circumstances which fully justified that gentleman. In the above, we have given but a brief sketch of a career by no means uncommon on the Pacific Coast, led by a man who was type of a class now becoming extinct. We may have made some errors in the matter of dates, but the facts are substantially as stated, and the lack of space prevents our giving them more in detail. Gather round, my fellows, while I sing the song. I hope that it might please you, for it won't detain you long. 'Tis about one of the old boys, so gallous and so fine, who carried the mails on the pioneer line, who used to carry mails on the pioneer line. He was the greatest favorite that ever yet was seen, known throughout the Washoe by the name of Baldy Green. He swung a whip so gracefully, for he was bound to shine. A high-tone driver on the pioneer line. He was a high-tone driver on the pioneer line. One night, while driving up the grade, as lively as a coon, he saw three men jump in the road by the pale light of the moon. Two men grabbed the leaders while one is shotgun cocks, saying, "Mr. Green, good morning, sir, now please throw down the box." "Mr. Green, good morning, sir, now please throw down the box." When old Baldy heard these words, he opened wide his eyes. He did not know just what to do, for they took him by surprise. Oh, but then he reached into the boot, saying, "Take it, sirs, with pleasure." Into the middle of the road went Weldon Fargo's treasure, and into the middle of the road went Weldon Fargo's treasure. He was the greatest favorite that ever yet was seen, known throughout the Washoe by the name of Baldy Green. He swung a whip so gracefully, for he was bound to shine. He was a high-tone driver on the pioneer line. He was a high-tone driver on the pioneer line. When the men had got the box, they seemed quite satisfied, for the man who held the leaders then politely stepped aside, saying, "Baldy, we've got what we want, now drive along your team." And he made the quickest time to Silver City ever seen. He made the quickest time to Silver City ever seen. Don't say greenbacks to Baldy now, it makes him feel so sore. He'd driven that road many a time and had never been robbed before. But the chances, they were 3-1. Shotguns were the game. If you had been in Baldy's place, you'd have shelled her out the same. If you had been in Baldy's place, you'd have shelled her out the same. He was the greatest favorite that ever yet was seen. From Placer to Virginia, he was known as Baldy Green. He swung a whip so gracefully, for he was bound to shine. A high-tone driver on the pioneer line. He was a high-tone driver on the pioneer line.